Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this replay or listening to this rebroadcast. This is Fly Nubian Money. I am your host, Dr. Lene Javette, the brilliant business engineer. And today we're tackling a critical issue: the higher rates of PTSD among Black women due to workplace stress. This topic is deeply impactful and needs our attention. Joining me are our incredible co-queens. We have Dr. Alicia, therapist, coach, and professor. We have Minister Connie, entrepreneur, real estate investor. We have Linda Husser, bodacious lifestyle coach for Black women over 50. And we have Aisha Verzi, who's also with us. And I think I hit everybody. We'll also discuss a recent article from The Guardian about Antoinette Candia Bailey, whose tragic death highlights the severe consequences of workplace stress. Let's dive into the complexities of this issue and discuss ways to support our mental health and well being. If you have not heard about Sister Antoinette Candia Bailey, she was the vice president at, I can't remember what the name of the school is, Lincoln. It's at HBCU, Lincoln University. And she recently committed suicide due to her work conditions, her work environment. Without going into the full article, some of the things in the article was saying that uh, although as HBCU, they just had they are currently have a non-Black president, the first time in 150 years, and she spoke about some of the pressures that she felt there. She said that it felt like she was being intentionally attacked. The president appeared to be heartless, and she ended up taking her life due to some of those stresses and some of that stress and those pressures. Before we get into the roundtable and going around the room, can we get the slide with the percentages of what that looks like for Black women compared to other nationalities? So, women workplace PTSD ranked by race: Black women experience it at 21.5%. Hispanic Latino women experience this at 17.2%, with white women experiencing it at 12.4%. If you are in the chat, this is a great time to let us know. Have you experienced any type of bullying or stress in your workplace? Workplace PTSD causes: one could be exposure to traumatic events or threats of violence, lack of organizational support or poor management practices, excessive workload and long hours, bullying, and racism. All right, so let's get into this conversation. Dr. Alicia, what you are familiar with this article, as well as you are a professor at a university. What are your thoughts around? Let's start with just what's going on with Miss Antoinette Bailey. What are your thoughts around that first?
Yeah, what happened with Antoinette Bailey is definitely a tragic situation of, I don't know if, in case people don't know the situation with her, but she was one of the very few people who spoke out about the experiences that she had in workplace racism. And she actually did a dissertation on this very topic. And she spoke out. She made a complaint and filed a written complaint against the president of the university, who was a white man. And I'm sorry, that's a microaggression to have a HBCU and you can only find a white male to be the president of a university that's supposed to represent and value the education of African Americans, and you have a white president. Here she is bringing a case to the university after writing a dissertation on this very topic. And the first thing they did was deny it. It is, and it's interesting because what she was talking about was more covert racism, such as microaggressions, very subtle instances of where she felt discriminated against racially by this white man. And I think instead of listening to her, the initial reaction, and it's not just her case, it's among a lot of people, the initial reaction is to deny it, is to say, no, that didn't happen, and to get defensive. Well, that's gaslighting people. And she got so frustrated that the president of the university fired her immediately. She had campus housing. So not only was she fired and lost her job, but she also lost housing. And she was told within a short period of time, you need to pack up and you need to go. Well, where is she to go? after being fired and humiliated at a university where she got her degree. She was an alumni of that university and had pride in coming back to her home institution to give back. And here she is feeling as if she's comfortable airing her grievances, and without the due process happening, she was terminated. So this is an illustration. It's a tragic illustration of what happens to a lot of us, Black women, when we experience workplace racism and microaggressions. This is a lady who spoke up, and her voice was silenced, literally silenced.
Man, it's sad. I would bet, and we can't hit everybody, but I am going to ask one or two of you to talk about it. I would bet that all five of us have experienced some sort of microaggression or racism or PTSD in the workplace. Linda, can you talk about any experiences that you may have had in a previous life around these types of activities, and what did you do? How did you handle it?
Well, it's interesting for me because I was in the Air Force, so I'm a veteran. And in the Air Force, women are outnumbered by men by a large majority. And I was in the 80s before, I guess it was cool to even go into the armed forces. So it was really, really bad. And I just remember more of a sexual harassment piece as opposed to the actual what happened with our dear friend that we're talking about today. However, it still caused PTSD because in one sense, I felt like I couldn't go to my commander, who was a man. I was being harassed by men, and just that whole feeling of hopelessness because I wanted to be in the Air Force. I was stationed overseas, which is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a young Black woman living in England, being able to get to Paris and Greece and Scotland and Spain and all these places. But at the same time, as a young Black woman, I was 20 years old, and there's 40-year-old plus people harassing me. I really just decided that I was going to grin and bear it and deal with it, differently, and hopefully it would just go away. And unfortunately, that is what a lot of people do and try to do, some more successfully than others. But it should not be that way.
I agree. In the chat, let us know. Have you had to deal with a microaggression in your workplace? And I saw somebody said in the healthcare industry is rampant. And if you did, what did you do? How did you solve it? Because your comment might help somebody else in the chat who may be dealing with this situation right now. So please let us know what you did in the chat so that you, let us know, but also maybe you can give some advice to somebody else who is having this problem. I Miss Aisha, let's go to you. I know that you are from the beautiful continent. Does workplace experience these same types of PTSD abroad?
Absolutely, it does. I can actually tell you a story of me personally, what I experienced when it comes to workplace, aggression or microaggression, we call it. And for me, I've experienced it both ways as an immigrant with an accent, number one, and then a woman, and then a woman of color, in our country here. So I've had to experience it in all ways, and it's really tough to talk about it sometimes. Where here you are, you've worked hard, you do the best you can in your field, you've been promoted to this level, and you're trying to help people get what they need. But when you come out, we need to speak to the person in charge, and you come out and you say, "Hi, how may I help you?" And they look at you from up and down and say, "No, I want to speak to the manager." And you're like, "Well, I'm the manager." "Well, I want somebody that's above you." "Well, I'm the one." It's incredible, and you're taken aback, because then you realize that, wow, they think you're not qualified to be there, or you can't talk to them. But really, when I experienced that, gratefully though, my company had zero tolerance for that. right? So when they try to do something to make me feel uncomfortable, my company that was behind me to say, no, this is what she wanted to do about it. And they supported me. So that helped me a little bit. But trust me, it was all the time. And for my own people, they'll tell me, go back to your village where you come from. Just imagine that. So I had to experience it in all ways. But at the end of the day, though, I realized that people are sometimes just people, and they will hurt you the way they don't care. They just want to hurt your feelings. And you just have to find a way to keep pushing through and not allow them to get to you. But, our sister that just passed away, that to me just broke my heart terribly, because it does hurt your feelings, because you realize what all that you've done to get to this place. And then somebody can just really override you like nothing. They don't even care. So, but experiencing that definitely makes me think about what I do and where I'm at, and also how to assert myself, assert myself, and know that, you know what, you may not like what you see, but I am here to stay, right? So that's pretty much how I handle it. So
good job. So
real.
Minister Connie, I'm going to come to you right after this clip. Right after this clip, I'm going to come to you. This is Fly Nubian Money. Today, we are talking about rising PTSD rates among Black women linked to workplace stress. You can tune in every Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. If you text the word Queens to 87948. Again, that's Queens to 87948. You will get notified. We'll let you know when we're going live every day, Monday through Friday. You can also find us on Spotify. If you search Fly Nubian Money, you can follow us and listen to the replays over on Spotify. Right now, we're going to go to a video around the topic that we're having. If we can go ahead and cue that video up, and then when we can...
If you are threatening someone's livelihood, if they know they have to show up to work every day and they're going to deal with a toxic boss, but they have to just suck it up, if they know that they have to deal with someone who has these microaggressions towards them, if you threaten their livelihood, you can have symptoms that look like PTSD, just as if you were attacked in a very violent way. So you can have avoidance, where you don't want to go to that work, or just walking in triggers you into fight or flight. You can have hypervigilance, where being around certain individuals makes you jump. You can have these cognitive symptoms of depression, poor sleep, poor concentration. All of these are PTSD symptoms related to what the DSM-5 calls life-threatening or assault. But people are having these related to these aggressive, toxic work environments. And the studies are showing that Black women are having these higher rates of PTSD related to workplace stress. We have to validate that this is real, that this is happening, and that it's not their fault. And with trauma, when someone's traumatized, the first thing you do is you make them feel safe. Well, people don't feel safe when they go to work. You stick to a routine. Well, if you're walking into an unpredictable situation where you don't know someone's gonna like throw you under the bus, that's not routine. And you tell them it's not their fault, well, they're blamed. These are the constructs for having the best prognosis for recovering, but Black women are not getting that.
Oh man, we're not getting that. So we know we're not getting it in the workplace, but from a spiritual perspective, because some of this stuff has to come from us. So Minister Connie, from a spiritual perspective, how can faith and spirituality help Black women to cope with workplace stress?
It's relevant. I worked in corporate America for like 35 years. So I've been bullied. I've been discriminated against. There's all of the above. I used to go in and pray. Before I walked in the door, I would say a prayer, and I would watch what I would say and what I would do. And when I was talked to by my director, there was an instance that he put on my performance appraisal that I would take care of business on my phone during my lunch and my break. And he said that he felt that I was not performing because I did that. So I had a low performance appraisal. I went to the president of the company and I talked to him about it. And I said, I thought that my lunch and my break is what I need to do whatever I want to do. It's nobody's business. And he said, well, I need to have the director here to talk to him so that we could discuss it as all three of us discuss this matter. I said, okay. So after we discussed the matter, I asked the director, did he ever see me on the phone? He said, no. I said, well, then where did you get this information from? I knew where he got it from. It was other people watching, writing down my time, when I left, when I came back. So I made sure on my lunch, I went to lunch 45 minutes. I came back, my break. But he had to end up taking it off of my performance appraisal because that was my time. I was not paid for my lunch. I had to work for my lunch. That 45 minutes extra is where I had to work, not, work that time off. But the thing is that he really was so upset because he had to give me my due diligence because that was my time. So how can you use that? So he tried to bully me. Every time I was on the phone taking care of business, he would come in the office and he says, "Are you on the phone talking personal?" He would whisper it. And I would be like, okay, I would say, "My director wants to speak to you." I would hand him the phone. And guess what? That stopped him from doing that to me because he thought I was taking personal time to talk on the phone when I was taking care of business. But the thing is, it happens to, I believe, all people of color. I was the only Black person that worked in that whole system it was a technical school. But, I appreciate that hard time in a sense because it helped me when I became self-employed to do better for my employees. It really, really helped me. But yes, it is a very big problem. But I say to go in, pray before you get there, and just be mindful of what you say and what you do, because they're going to take a record of everything that you do. They're watching you. So
all eyes are on us when
do.
we're in the building. All eyes are on us when we are in the building.
Yes.
Okay, so I was getting ready to say something. Oh, I see in the chat, PTSD. Somebody asked, what is PTSD? So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. A lot of times you hear about PTSD from the perspective of a military, people who have gone to war, who have come back from war, the things that they've seen and experienced over there. You'll hear the terminology PTSD used in that capacity. But we're seeing it happen here with Black women in the workplace. Dr. Alicia, from a psychological standpoint, how can we identify signs of PTSD and severe workplace stress early? Because someone might not even realize that they have PTSD. They're going into work every day, their boss is tripping on them every day, and they don't know why they're leaving their workplace sad, frustrated, depressed, angry when they get home, can't function. What are some signs that someone might be experiencing PTSD?
Yeah, well, thank you for reading the definition of PTSD, but the misconception about PTSD is that there's one singular event that can happen to you, and then you are 6 months down the line still re-experiencing these events, and therefore you meet the diagnosis of PTSD. However, we're just listening to what Minister Connie, what Miss Linda, and what Miss Aisha has just talked about. What they described as happened in the workplace is not one singular incident. It is something that happens every single day they go to work, Monday through Friday. It's the accumulation of work-based trauma that happens, and it happens to you over a large span of time, and that has an effect on you that is PTSD. You also can meet the criteria for PTSD. It doesn't have to be a big booming event. It's the accumulation of all these small events that lead up to these symptoms of PTSD. And what it does, you experience microaggression. All of the examples that we've listened to and the people in the chat are talking about, the mental time and energy that it takes to think about that, to process it, all of that time and energy that could be spent toward productiveness in your workplace, it's spent toward, did that person just talk to me off color like that because of my race? Did they talk to me this way because I'm a female? Because being Black and female, it doesn't serve you when it comes to microaggressions. It's the conversation that you're having in your head about, what am I just experiencing? Hold on. They just said that to this person, but they didn't say that to everybody. We all have that experience. The time, it's exhausting. And then you start to not trust people around you. You can't lower your guard. You don't develop workplace friendships, or just being friendly with somebody because you don't know who to trust. And people are, even if you're smart and bright, which a lot of Black women are, they work real hard in the workplace, and you don't get that recognition. So it really is deflating. It can take the whole life out of you when you are ambitious and you want to do well and you have a gift that you want to give to the world. These are the realistic experiences that Black women have. It's a chilly, hostile climate. Now, Dr. Lene asked me, what do we do to cope? Well, number one is to recognize the symptoms and get help early. Sometimes you can need professional help because it wounds your soul. Like it's a spiritual wounding that happens when you're not seen for your ability, but you're seen for these other things. Not to mention, we live in the world that's racist anyway. So you're bringing in historical trauma. Like, that's what happens. You have to build a life outside of work that is supportive, that is uplifting. You could go to church, you could, participate in activities that helps you. Now, you can always quit your job and go into your own business, or you can switch jobs. But in another way, you can kind of look at your expectations. I mean, that's something I've done in my job. I just see people for who and what they are. I know where the landmines are. I know who's a good person, who's the bad person. I know who's friendly to Black people, who isn't. I've been working at my workplace for a long time. I can navigate because I know the lay of the land. I understand for what it is. I'm not trying to change it because I do my job to the best of my ability, right? So, I mean, you can take that sort of perspective, because I realized a long time ago that I do not need your approval for me to feel good about myself. Now, that takes us a journey, right? When you're just starting out in your job, you are going to be a little insecure because it's new to you. When you're just becoming an entrepreneur, it is kind of like, oh, what do I do? How do I start this? So getting a support system around you where you feel safe. The video was beautiful. She said, you have to feel safe. You have to feel like you can voice yourself instead of silencing your voice, and keep things into perspective. So that's just off the bat, one of the things I want to say about how to cope. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your experiences. It resonated with everybody, by the way.
So this is Fly Nubian Money. Today we're talking about rising PTSD rates among Black women linked to workplace stress. Every day you can tune in for some type of titillating conversation. Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. You can catch us on YouTube. If you are not someplace where you can listen to us on YouTube, you can always re-listen to us on Spotify. If you go to Spotify and you search for Fly Nubian Money, you can listen to the rebroadcast. You can check out the podcast there. But if you want to get notified, if you would like to be in the end with the Fly Nubian Queens, you can text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948, and you will be notified when we go live every Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. So I want to ask you guys over in the chat, what changes would you like to see in your workplace to better support mental health? So we see everybody's experiencing some type of PTSD, microaggression, racism, something that's making you not feel quite right in your workplace. What would you like to see change? What could happen to make it a better place, a safe space for you? Give us some solutions over in the chat. I will say, when I was working in corporate America, things that used to happen. And listen, in the chat, I know y'all have heard this before. I worked for a $1 billion aerospace company. I've had really good jobs. I worked for an architectural firm, and then right after that, I worked for a $1 billion aerospace company. And so it was the CEO, the president, and then me. And I always talk about this. I learned so much in that role. And in the executive, on the executive level, on the executive floor, I'm the only brown girl in that room. And so I'm sitting around tables with mostly white men. There was only one white woman on the executive level, but mostly white men. And so I remember getting called into my boss's office one time, again, CEO, president, me. And he said, because I'm over nothing but white men, executive, VPs, executives, and he was like, well, a couple of people have come to me because they said that they're afraid to talk to you. They don't feel like you're uh, open. They feel like you might be just, just a little bit maybe aggressive, because they have a hard time saying they don't want to say you're angry. So he was like, maybe, just a little bit aggressive, and maybe if you tone it down a little bit and whatnot. And I remember those types of things. Or people would come in and be like, you're, what would they say? They would say things like, uh, I've never met anyone like you. Or you speak so well. Just little things, people don't realize how those are microaggressions. You're saying things without saying things. And so I got to a place in my career where I would say things like, when I get to work, I literally hang myself up at the door and I walk in and I corporate. And then when I leave, I pick myself up at the door and walk out, because they cannot accept us in our totality, who we are. I'm not being aggressive. I'm being direct. I'm a Black girl talking to these white men who are challenging everything I say. So I have to lean in, because every time I say something, they say something back. And I have to then say, no, this is what we're doing. This is why. Yeah, but I don't. Well, hold on. So I'm literally just trying to get a word in edgewise, but these are the things that are happening, which is like Dr. Alicia said, it's not one thing. It's the consistent having to prove myself, having to have my voice be heard, having to be taken seriously. Yes, I know what I'm talking about. Linda, how can Black women navigate career transitions while managing these types of things?
I will just say this, as a Black woman who has worked for myself way more years than I have worked for the man, that I would say, because I do have clients who do still work for corporate America, that there's also another dynamic at play here. There's also ageism going on. And what's really unfortunate about that is you have your Blackness, quote unquote, working against you. Now you have your age working against you. And what I say to women who find themselves in that situation is to, number one, know your rights. You got to know your rights. You have to know that manual, that handbook, whatever they give you, inside and out. Because unfortunately, when it comes to people, you have to go to them with the rules. Now, they may not understand a lot of things, but they do understand the rules. So I just got to go back to the lady who unalived herself. And I'm saying it like that because that's how we say it online. There had to be something in place. And if there wasn't anything in place when it came to dealing with stress and anxiety, then shame on the school. And if I were her people, that the new name of that school would be her name.
Listen, give it to the Black woman. Name it after a Black woman. We're going to go to a couple of slides really quickly. Let's get the PTSD number slide up so we can look at see what that looks like, because it's real. Okay, so we did show this one earlier. Okay, so again, just Black women are experiencing PTSD at 21.5%, Hispanic Latina at 17.2%, white at 12.4%. And then, depression in the workplace causes 490 million disability days from work each year in the US. It accounts for $23 billion in lost work days each year. And it takes an economic toll of over $100 billion each year from US businesses. PTSD caused by workplace trauma from experiencing bullying and excessive micromanagement can manifest as chronic anxiety, hyperreactivity, exhaustion, depression, emotional numbing, self-isolation, sleep difficulties, lack of focus, irritability, negativity, avoidance of work, intrusive thoughts, self-blame, and blaming of others. In some cases, an employee doesn't recognize that their work environment is causing the trauma. Oh my goodness. I'm going to just go ahead and raise my hand because I remember working in corporate America and having those experiences. Aisha, I'm just going to assume that you have had these experiences as well. How have you not allowed those experiences to lead to burnout?
Wow. It's tough just even just reading what you with the slide, and how tough to just feel those feelings as we're just reading, just like, wow, this is crazy and it's so true. And the way I've been able to really try to mitigate the stresses of all this experience is just like what the minister said, it's just prayer. I try to use my prayer time to kind of calm myself down, and not allow those externals to come to my internal of who I am. Like what you just described, you said you come to work, you be one person and you leave somebody else as who you really are, because you have to put on this front just to be able to survive in where you work. So I really try to use my prayer time to help me, and again, just be present in what is happening around me. So when I respond or try to take care of what is happening in front of me, I'm truly who I am. I if you think maybe I'm speaking in a loud voice, I should speak slower. I just be myself, be my true self, and understanding that I don't have to be excessive in the way I respond, but at the same time, I have to respond in the way I feel true to who I am. So I don't feel like I'm losing a piece of myself every single time, because I did that initially, and I knew it didn't work for me. It wasn't working. So when I kind of regroup, I said, no, listen, no, I'm a good person. And I know that what I'm trying to do is to help. So I will not reduce who I am just to make somebody else feel comfortable. Rather, I just speak the truth, and just allow things to flow just the way they are. So that's how I've been able to try to really mitigate that personally when it comes to the workplace, and how to get past the fact that we're going to experience this no matter what. Our society just has that everywhere you turn is something like that happening. So but just being true to myself and just responding the way I would have no matter what helps me to not allow it to affect me so much.
I like that. I like that. So, one of the things around PTSD, stress, trauma, workplace environments that is happening that I don't think we talk about enough, specifically, and especially in our community, is therapy, counseling, getting help. We take on the weight of the world as a community, and we don't seek proper help and guidance to release some of those stresses and traumas, right? What we do is pray. What we do is go to the church. So, Minister Connie, my question then becomes, are there things that the church can do or should be doing to help talk about these things, or to help address these things? And or what do you do specifically, because you're a serial entrepreneur, so you have staff members but you also have church members. So what are things that the church could be doing or employers could be doing to mitigate some of these PTSD environments?
Well, one of the things that I believe, a church should be a safe place of hope for you to come and discuss things like that. There's a lot of spiritual counseling that are happening at a lot of churches. You just need to call and inquire. God wants us to be well. He says in Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, in prayer and petition, we petition him, and he will, he will ease the things that we're going through. I'm paraphrasing. So therefore, we really, there was so many scriptures about being anxious and diseased in the Bible. So I would tell people to, reach out to your church, get spiritual counseling. If that's not good, then go and get therapy. I did not get therapy, but going back to what you had said before, I worked in a technical school and I was the only minority there. And I worked with a lot of men. It was like 95 was men. And so I was over their careers because I was a career advisor. I was told I was unapproachable. I was reserved. There was all kind of things that came at me. So that's why I said when I entered that building, I would just bind spirits because people have spirits. Everybody have a spirit, you know? So I would bind the spirit. And when someone was coming to me in a very disrespectful, I had that a lot of times, in a very disrespectful way, I would just pray in, real quietly under my breath. And when they were done, I would say, Lord, give me what I need to say that is very tactful without them taking offense. And he would give me what to say. And it would just kind of calm them down because I had people in my face. So it was a very difficult job. But you know what? I took everything that happened to me there and I use it in being an entrepreneur right now, making policies. There should be workplace policy of zero tolerance for bullying. There should be some kind of survey that goes out to say, are we meeting the criteria that need to be met for discrimination? Those are things that need to happen in the workplace. I know that I had to create a cultural deficiency on transgender because people are cross-dressers and all kind of things, and we go into the home and take care of them, but they are not to be disrespected. There are some people that have to have cannabis or reefer. I call it marijuana, but we had to have a policy for that. No, there's a zero tolerance for drug in the workplace. So if you go to that home, even if they offer it to you, you do not take it. You do not take that. So there is policies that should be written to help people in the workplace, no matter if it's within the corporate America or if it's in that person's home, whatever kind of field you're in, especially if you're going into health, the health care industry, because that's what we have to do. We have to write policies to protect the consumer and the employee. So I think that's one of the things that we can start doing is really pushing for corporations to have a zero tolerance for things like that. Discrimination, bullying, just people just coming up and, being defensive all in your face.
Yeah, I think that's why they call it the microaggressions, because sometimes it's hard to even prove that somebody's being bullied because it's underlined and it's laced under a microaggression. So thank you so much, Minister Connie. This is Fly Nubian Money. If you are enjoying this conversation and you want more conversations like this throughout your week, guess what? You can get them every single day, Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. All you have to do is text the word Queens, Queens, to 87948, TO2, not the number 2. So text Queens to the number 87948, and you can be notified when we go live every Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. So today we're talking about rising PTSD rates among Black women linked to workplace stress. And this whole conversation started out because we were talking about our good sister, Antoinette Candia Bailey. However, we're going to cut to a video real quick that talks about PTSD in the workplace and what Black women are experiencing. We can go to
If you are threatening someone's livelihood, if they know they have to show up to work every day and they're going to deal with a toxic boss, but they have to just suck it up. If they know that they have to deal with someone who has these microaggressions towards them, if you threaten their livelihood, you can have symptoms that look like PTSD, just as if you were attacked in a very violent way. So you can have avoidance where you don't want to go to that work, or just walking in triggers you into fight or flight. You can have hypervigilance where being around certain individuals makes you jump. You can have these cognitive symptoms of depression, poor sleep, poor concentration. All of these are PTSD symptoms related to what the DSM-5 calls life-threatening or assault. But people are having these related to these aggressive, toxic work environments. And the studies are showing that Black women are having these higher rates of PTSD related to workplace stress. We have to validate that this is real, that this is happening, and that it's not their fault. And with trauma, when someone's traumatized, the first thing you do is you make them feel safe. Well, people don't feel safe when they go to work. You stick to a routine. Well, if you're walking into an unpredictable situation where you don't know someone's gonna like throw you under the bus, that's not routine. And you tell them it's not their fault, well, they're blamed. These are the constructs for having the best prognosis for recovering, but Black women are not getting that.
So again, not only are they not getting that, I'm just going to read a small snippet of the article. It says, Candia Bailey, or as we call her Bonnie, left behind a document trail alleging that her boss's inattention to her mental health concerns left her devastated. John Mosley, Lincoln University's first white president in 150 years, appeared heartless and hurt people intentionally, Candia Bailey alleged. Dr. Alicia, how would you have counseled a client that was facing what Sister Antoinette was experiencing if they were coming to you, and or any woman who's listening to this broadcast and is experiencing this right now?
Yeah, I mean, when people experience things like this and they don't have the support of their institution, they immediately think, well, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. And definitely working with clients to build a safe space around what they're experiencing and to deconstruct a lot of this stuff. And also to, along with the individual work that it takes when you're working with somebody with workplace trauma and validating their experience and processing how they felt, what they were thinking, and validating all of these instances that they've had going on and they're thinking about it in their mind. It's the ruminating thoughts. Like, you want to enjoy your children's basketball game, but you can't because these intrusive thoughts are coming in and you're constantly checking your phone email to see if someone's emailed you, and you have to feel like you have to get right back to them. It's putting some boundaries around it. Mentally cut yourself off from it. And if it's a Saturday night, don't think about your job. Think about it on Monday. So putting some boundaries around it and making the conscious effort to do this. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm a social worker. I think it's time for us to start advocating for ourselves, speaking up for ourselves, to look at institutions and look at organizations and start calling things out and building a support system within the institution. Because if it's happening to you, I'm certain it's happening to other people. There is power in numbers. And I'm sorry, like, institutions and organizations thrive when diversity is celebrated. The bottom line is making sure you put out a good product. You have a good university for students. You have a good morale in the workplace. So when you have these instances of microaggressions and disgruntledness, it has an effect not just on you, but everybody around you. So in the bottom line, people in managerial positions and individuals who are in positions where they can do something about it and speak up and support individuals who come to them and voice these concerns, everybody wins when everybody is celebrating diversity. And I'm talking about sexual diversity, I'm talking about racial diversity, gender diversity. Making people feel comfortable to open up and to share makes a better and stronger organizations. And we were going in that direction with the DEI stuff, and what a setback that a lot of that has been squashed. And it's a sad thing. And I hope that organizations with great integrity who know this, like, I'm not speaking from my opinion, these are facts here. So people who know that diversity is what makes you stronger, you need to be progressive. People who know this, even though we don't have federal laws telling you that you need to be accepting of other people, organizations that do accept other people, that celebrate diversity, that really bring people to the table, those universities are going to survive. Those institutions will survive. Those organizations will survive. So deconstruct it. Some of it is individual, but some of it you can cultivate to make big, massive macro changes at your institutions, because you belong there just as much as anybody else. And you leave on your own terms. Don't let nobody push you out because they're uncomfortable of your presence. You can take up space.
Take up space, sis.
Space, just like everybody else.
We're talking about sisters today, but brothers, we know you're dealing with the same thing. We know you're dealing with the same thing. It's a Black issue, not necessarily only a Black woman issue. It is a Black man, Black woman issue. So although we are talking to the sisters, brothers, We know you're dealing with some of these same microaggressions and situations on the job where you work. What I would say is that we know you have to go to work. We know you have to make money. We know you have to feed your family. And the sad part about this conversation is it's not as easy as leaving one job and going to another because it's everywhere. It's in a variety of different industries. It's in different bosses. It's in different states. It does not matter where you go. You may not be able to get away from it, right? And so the conversation then becomes, well, what do we do? How do we cope? How do we deal with it, right? Some of it was, we talked about the psychological aspect. Go and get help. Talk to somebody. Talk to somebody professional that can help you talk it through, that can help you deal with it. We talked about going to church. We talked about your spirituality and praying and those types of things. Linda, I want to talk about self-care. How can we care for ourselves? How can we love ourselves? How can we make sure that we don't let what's happening at that workplace come home with us and taint us and talk to us crazy about who we are and what we do? What would you say to a woman, brothers, who might be experiencing that? How can they turn that around? What can they do?
Well, I don't remember what sister said it, but being an advocate for yourself. Like when something just doesn't seem right, even if there is no policy, even if there are no procedures in place, sometimes you just have to say, you know what? Because I did this. I was having a very heated discussion and I respectfully dismissed myself. I just said, you know what? I don't know what the proper procedures are right now, but I'm going to dismiss myself. I'm going to go to sick calls because, see, I knew they could not deny me that. I knew I could go to sick call, which is like the emergency room. They could not tell me that I could not go. I knew they were going to call. I knew they were going to follow up. I knew they were going to ask if I checked in. And that's where I went because I needed to just relax. Now, for someone who may not think that that's an option for them, deep breathing is a beautiful thing. Just getting quiet. Like if you've had a heated discussion and it's over, if you've got your office, if you've got a cubicle, wherever your private space is, everybody I hear gets breaks. You can decide, I'm going on my 15 and go on it. Get out of the building, get away from where things are happening. And just, if you, all you do is walk around and pray outside, just listen to the birds. There's a lady that I have, she goes to the bathroom. She says, I go in the stall, the one that's handicapped all the way at the end, and I sit there and I just get myself together. Whatever that looks like. If I have to cry, if I have to pull up, she said, I always have my phone. If I pull up my Bible scriptures and I center myself, she said, because what I do know for sure is angry Black woman is a real thing for them. And even if I am expressing myself vigorously, as we know other people get the right to do, it's not going to be seen that way. So she said, I find ways to calm myself down, meditation, prayer, journaling. She said she'll get on her phone and she'll just get on her notes app and just start talking about what's going on and how, she said, even if it's unfair, if I can just get it out. And she said, I'll be typing, it'll be smoke coming from the screen of my phone almost. But if I can just get it out, that is such a wonderful way to do it. So I just encourage removing yourself from the situation respectfully. Don't just get up and, slam the book, the thing down on your computer and all that. Just respectfully say, you know what? I don't feel well, because you don't. And I'm going to just respectfully dismiss myself right now. And I'll be back. What can they say? Well, she respectfully dismissed herself, so I think we should fire her. No, they can't say that. They can't do that. You have a right to look out for yourself and advocate for yourself. So that's what I always say. Whatever you think you need to do, respectfully. Cussing out is never an option. Being rude and disrespectful, that is never an option. Because no matter how you say it, I was pushed, it's just not a good look.
All right, we're gonna go to this question from Nadia Zayad. It says, it is hard to fit in corporate America. They do not want us there, so why? be there? Oh my God, that's such a great question, because I know other people think that and feel that way. So I'm going to give you my humble 2 cents. We have to be there, because we have to open doors, because we have to make sure that the generations that come behind us get the proper respect that they need. We have to be there because these are the places that are making choices and decisions about what's going to be happening next. And so we have to be sitting at those tables. Her next comment said, we must just start our own. And so some of that is true. And I agree. There are places and times when we need to start our own, but everybody's not going to be able to start their own. Some people have to go and work and support other people, but also we need to be in these corporations. We cannot let these corporations get so big and have so much say, and nobody in that building looks like us. We have to be in those rooms. We have to be in those buildings, because we have to be advocating for us. We have to make sure that these corporations don't leave us behind. And so we have to be in there. We also have to teach them. We also have to make sure that they have cultural awareness. We also have to make sure that we're representing our community well, because we can't get left behind. We are already 400 years behind already. So if we take a seat and let the corporations move forward without us, we're going to be left even further behind. So it's important that we're in these buildings. It's important that we're on these executive teams. It's important that we're on these boards. It's important that we're represented. It's important that our conversations are being had and that we're being thought about and not just sold to. Our money's not just being taken. We have to be in these rooms and spaces. And it's important also that we diversify. We can't just keep going and working at the same places and starting the same types of businesses. I always say that I always try to do business with Black people. And I get challenged in that. There's no way you can only do business with Black people. Well, there is not a way, because Apple is not a Black company, right? And yet this Apple phone is sitting on my desk. What I can do, though, is make sure that when I go and get a service, that I'm doing it with a Black technician. When I have to get insurance, State Farm is not Black owned, but I do make sure I go and see a State Farm broker that is Black owned. So I always try to make sure that there is a Black hand tied to my transactions, right? So we have to make sure that there are Black people associated with these major organizations, that they are making money off these organizations, that their voices are being heard, and that we as consumers are supporting them to help them in their transition. I'm going to go around the room. We have like 6 minutes. So I'm going to go around the room for final thoughts, as well as let people know where they can find you. We'll start with you, Minister Connie.
Yes, you can find me at ConnieSpearman.com. My thoughts on this is that there is a human resource in every department of a corporate America. Hopefully, like Linda has said, look at the policies and follow the policies. And if there is ever a time that you need to discuss discrimination or bullying or any of those things, see what the policies that is written for that corporation, what they are. Also be mindful, do not be disrespectful, be mindful of what you say, and always document everything that you do. And also just make sure to know that people are watching you. So do your job and do the best that you can. But during your time that you have to step away, pray. Journal is good, because if you're upset and you're going through something, writing it down kind of like ease it. It's like you didn't said something. You got it off your chest. So that's always good. So that's what I would like to say. I'm glad I've been on this panel today. This is a very great discussion.
It has been a great discussion. What about you, Miss Aisha? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I just noticed that. I just love what you said about how we have to be there. We have to be in these spaces, regardless of how tough it might seem, because we have to be the one to make sure that our voices are being heard, and also that we have something to say, right? And for our culture or our community to be represented. So we have to be in those rooms. And I also love what you say, support each other. If there's a Black-owned business that is owned by a white company, but a Black person is part of that business, support that Black person so that they can do well in that space. And also be kind when you talk to people, be respectful, and be humble. So people cannot doubt, your credibility if you just, are kind, humble, and respectful of others. That's all I will say in this space. And I believe that we should be there because we have the right to be there. No matter what company it is or what organization it is, we have the right to be there as well. Thank you.
I love that. Linda?
Yes, be your biggest advocate. There will be times when there just might not be policy, but you have your internal policy. You have your internal set of rules and boundaries. And when they are crossed, you must stick to whatever that is that you need to do to stay sane, to stay safe, and to stay whole. I can be reached on all platforms at Linda S. Husser and speaktolinda.com.
Thank you, Linda. Dr. Alicia?
Hi, everybody. This is a great discussion today. I echo what everybody has said here today, but I also would just like to add that I think that you need to find some advocates in your place of employment. If you are finding that you're coming up against what you would consider workplace discrimination, race-based racism in the workplace, try to see if there is someone on that team or someone in that organization that is an advocate for you. When you are brought up in a room and a bunch of people are discussing you, is there someone in that position that can speak up in your behalf? Now, if you do have that, then you're pretty lucky. You have a place where someone can help you and mentor you along, because gosh, working it's political. Everybody wants to get ahead. People want their leadership skills recognized so that you can move up and, let's just face it, make more money. And when you're in that position, you have somebody advocating for you, then you have a better way of overcoming. If you do not have an advocate, it may be a time for you to just kind of look other places where you can work, maybe word of mouth. You can say, hey, tell me about your position. What is it that you do that I think I can fit nicely in your organization? And when you are interviewing for a job, ask some questions, pay attention to what's going on, because again, there's so much effort and time and energy that's put into making sure that the majority of your life is spent at work, and you want to make sure that it's a place where you can contribute and you feel respected. Okay, you can find me at coachingwithdralicia.com. I work with individuals on the individual level. I work with individuals and families. And if you are a couple, you can click on the link and I will reach out to you. And you can find me on Instagram at Coaching with Dr. Alicia.
Thank you, Dr. Alicia. I will say this. I wrote down a couple of different things I wanted to leave you guys with. Some of it's just a recap of what some of the queens already said. Number one, find you a safe space or a safe group or a safe person to talk to, whether that's a girlfriend, a mentor, a coach, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, somebody that you can release some of what you're dealing with at work, because you got to release what's on you, because if you don't, it gets heavy and it weighs down and it causes more harm. The second thing I would say to do is to make sure that you have a clear career path, because sometimes I have found that even when I'm dealing with the stress and traumas and dramas of life, if I know where I'm going and I know what I'm going to do and I know why I'm in the middle of this mess, it makes me a little bit stronger. I can carry it a little bit better because I know where I'm going and I know what I'm doing, right? The third thing I would say is, and I saw it in the chat, we kind of talked about advocates, and sometimes it is difficult to have an advocate for you at work. But if you can find one, the goal of an advocate is to speak up for you in rooms that you're not in. So when they're talking about promotions and they're talking about passing out work assignments and things of that nature, this person has your back. So if you can find one of those people in your job, do so. And then the last one, not to end on a negative note, but keep a paper trail. The person with the most paper wins. So if certain things are happening to you at work, in your job, with a manager, somebody like that, Keep a paper trail. We talked about HR and somebody said it's a waste of time. Make HR work for their money. Every time you have a situation or incident, whether you take it to them directly or specifically, or you keep a note of it and send it to yourself in an email, keep a paper trail, because they do. And what happens a lot of times is when you're dealing with traumas and stresses and you go up against the machine to say whatever you have to say, they pull out their paper trail and then you don't have anything to back yourself up. So make sure that you are keeping track of the traumas or the things that are happening to you at work, in case you ever have to, pull up on them and be like, pay me my money. Here's my track record. Here's what has happened. Here's how you didn't support me. And this is what it has done. So I always say play chess and not checkers. Okay. I am Dr. Lene Javette. I am a monetization strategist. I am a business and life coach. I help Black service-based entrepreneurs who package and sell their expertise to brand their brilliance and triple their revenue. This is Fly Nubian Money. You can catch us here every Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. You can text the word Queens, Queens, to the number 87948 to be notified when we are live. You can also find us on Spotify. You can search Fly Nubian Money there. And then you can also go to, I'm looking for my last little spiel, flynubianmoney.com for free resources and tools around growing your business, growing your money. We will see you here again tomorrow. The week is not over. You can still come back and check us out tomorrow at 1:00 p.m. Don't forget to stay Black, be blessed, and be one. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.